Look, good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to give you our COVID update, which we usually do. Not here with Josh and Paul, but here with a couple of other folks, because we're really going to focus on police accountability and what the George Floyd murder meant in terms of this day of reckoning. But first of all, when it comes to our COVID-related, I think you maybe saw the numbers. I think most relevant is that our positive cases were still down at 2%. And that makes us probably in the best 5 or 6 states in the country in terms of positivity rate. And that tells us that we're ready to do our next phase of the reopening on Wednesday. We had 3 fatalities, 3 too many, but 3 is the least we've had since the start of this pandemic. 2 fewer hospitalizations. Over 7,000 tests performed. You can take a look. We're putting up on our site the COVID task force, national task force, where they said Connecticut is one of 6 states that is ready to be in the green zone, continue reopening, given where we are on testing, given where we are on positivity, and given where we are on our infection rate. 3rd lowest state in the country when it comes to the infection rate, meaning the number of people that you infect over the course of a period of time. And finally, Johns Hopkins reported that Connecticut is in the top 10 in terms of testing. And this is no victory lap. This is no mission accomplished. This is a way to say, keep up the good work. We've got a long way to go. We talked about at the end of last week what you see in terms of flare-ups around the rest of the country, around the rest of the world. China just had to close up a number of their schools again. I don't want that happening in Connecticut, so I appreciate all of you wearing your mask as necessary. But it's now been, more than a couple of weeks since George Floyd's murder, and we've had a number of protests, rightfully so, peaceful protests, for which I'm very thankful here in the state of Connecticut. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more about police accountability. Let's not wait. I got the legislature coming in this session, but I don't want to wait another minute. I want to do what we can do right now and then work with my friends in the legislature going forward to build off of the good bill that Stastrom and Winfield, Representative Stastrom, Senator Winfield helped inaugurate last year, and build off of that this coming session. But most importantly, police accountability is about trust, and good police work doesn't work without trust. And trust doesn't work unless police has the word community policing in it. So the first thing I'm directing our state police force to do is build off of what they've got going with their resident state troopers right now. They're resident state troopers who work every week with the high school, work every week with the ministers, work every week with the community leaders. And that's how they're able to maintain a good, close relationship with the community. Community policing, emphasize the word community. I think you saw some of that over the last couple of weeks with the protests, and how our state police and municipal police were working with the community and working with the protesters, do everything we can to say, we share your goals, and we share your goal also in terms of a peaceful exercise of your First Amendment rights. And I see a lot of municipalities around the state that already understand the importance of community policing. I always love to reference Neil O'Leary in Waterbury and the Police Athletic League, where more and more of the police know these kids because they help teach them basketball or softball in an earlier age. And 10 years later, if they're doing something knucklehead, they can say, I remember when I tried to teach you baseball, and I'm still with you today, and we're going to get this right. That's what I mean in terms of a liaison and community. We're directing our state police to make sure they have a community liaison officer in each and every one of their troops. Build off of that. Make sure we have those relationships with the community going forward. Make sure we build up trust and earn your trust every day, because that's what good policing is all about. Policing is also of, by, and for the community. And you've heard me say this before, but say it again. I want a police force. I want a state police force. I want administration. I want judges. I want district attorneys who represent the amazing diversity of our state. And right now, we have a long way to go. I looked at the numbers of our state police here in the state of Connecticut, and 80% right now are white males. 80% of our state police are white males. But that's changing. Commissioner Ravella and his amazing team had a mission going back a year saying we are going to do a better job of recruiting. And they've done a better job of recruiting. And we've got our latest class right now back in, about to be graduated, join our state police force. Not 80% white male, 60% white male. Is that great? No. Is that progress? Yes. The rest are female, 10%, black and Puerto Rican, 10%, 10%. So we're doing a better job. We have to do a better job still. Max is putting up on our site the social media campaign we're doing. I know that for the women, we're going to a lot of the teams right now because those are women on sports teams in high school and college who have leadership capability and not afraid of what it means to be a great state trooper. That's what we're doing at the state level now, and that's what I want our municipal leaders to do the same, and we're going to work with the legislature to make sure that happens. And when we say of, by, and for the community, this goes without saying. This is not some military-style response. We don't need all those military weapons. You saw what was being offered up by the feds. I know going back to 9/11, there was a great deal of urgency in terms of terrorism and the such. Well, we're going to take a pause on those military-style weapons. We've got what we need right now in the case of a terrorist attack, and I want to do everything I can to convince the communities we're there for you. We're there to protect you, and I can't do it unless we're doing it with you. Ravella and our amazing state police and our municipal police cannot do it without you. As you know, we're also going to be instituting no chokehold policy, clear as day for state police, taking that down to municipal police, working with our legislators on that. Body cams, we've got the money in the budget. I think 95% of our state police have the body cams, dash cams now. We're going to complete that. We have funding available for our municipal police as well. I got to give you confidence. And our state police want you to know they have nothing to hide. They feel proud of the work they're doing and want you to see it. Again, working with Representative Stastrom and Senator Winfield last year in the bill that was passed on a virtually unanimous basis in the Senate, not in the House. 4-day release on those videos, nothing to hide. We want you to have confidence that we're trying to do the very best we can for each and every one of you. And finally, a lot of these were represented in a program called 8 Can't Wait. And we've used that as direction, and we're putting a check next to each of those boxes to give you confidence that we understand what that means. And finally, 2 things. One, we're going to put in place a use of force portal. We've been working on this for a year, but now is the time to release it. I want you to know town by town, based on gender, based upon race, what our police are doing, how that impacts your community, and how that's broken down by race and gender. I just think in the name of transparency, we want you to see what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what those trend lines are. I think you will see that Connecticut is much less likely to use force than just about any of the other police forces around the country. And for that, I'm proud. And, finally, what I saw in that George Floyd video, and I think a lot of others saw as well, is nobody intervened. Nobody else stepped in. Where were the other police when we needed them to do more, and they didn't? So we are making that a requirement. I know in the George Floyd case, they are being held accountable now, and we're putting that right into our regs for each and every state police so they know you are accountable, not just for your own self, but for those around you. If you see something like that, stop it and report it. Stop it and report it. That is your legal requirement, and we're firm on that. With that, I've got to introduce 2 friends of mine from the legislature who have taken a real lead on these issues, and I look to for counsel and will be helping to take the lead in the legislature during the next session. One is Joe Varengia. Joe was a cop for, I think, a quarter of a century in West Hartford, also worked in the school system, and now is chairman of public safety. And after that, I get an opportunity to introduce to you Brandon McGee. Joe?
Thank you. This announcement is significant. I think the governor has identified some key areas where we need to respond sooner than later. This is the first step of many. I look forward to working with the governor and my fellow legislators in working on police reforms. I think it's important, though, to take a moment to recognize the fact that Connecticut has been a leader when it comes to police reforms, particularly when it comes to training. Over the last 3 or 4 years here in the state of Connecticut, we've implemented major changes as a result of working with our stakeholders, our police, our state's attorney, our chiefs of police, our residents from all over the state, in working together to come up with good policies, particularly when it comes to the use of force, de-escalation, and others. But what this incident makes us realize is the fact that we can do more. So I look forward to working with everyone in affecting change. And the governor mentioned the militarization of equipment, and there's been a lot of discussion of that. But I think equally important is that when we talk about changes that we've done over the last 2 or 3 years, we also have changed the way we train our police officers, particularly from a military style type of training to a more collegiate type of training. And that speaks to how we train our officers and how they treat people. And I honestly believe that there's a correlation between the reforms that we've implemented over the last 3 and 4 years and the type of protesting we're seeing here in Connecticut, particularly when we don't see the violence and the destruction of property. Not only do I believe it's a result of training, but also the good work of our community leaders, our police chiefs, in establishing relationships so that when we do have incidents such as this, that the community has been working together. And let me make very clear that there's no room at all, not only in this country, let alone policing, for the type of behavior that we've seen in this incident. So I look forward to working on police reforms so that that doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And Joe's co-chairman is Senator Dennis Bradley. Dennis?
Thank you very much. It's really a new day, and I'm sure many of you have been reporting and watching what's been happening throughout the state of Connecticut, what's been happening throughout the nation, not only in the sadness that's happened with the incidents that have brought us here in this day, but really in the sense of brotherhood that's happened throughout this country and in the state. I've been to rallies where I've seen the majority of the people at the rally are people who are white, who are standing up for rights because they understand that we're all human beings, that every life matters, that black lives matter because every life matters. To have our governor to be the tip of the spear and leadership, and to so quickly come up and say, not under my watch will I tolerate this degree of dehumanization, the scourge of racism to exist, and to come up with executive policies and ask our legislator to come back and special sessions to address these issues speaks volumes of where we're going as a nation. And I really commend Governor for making out clear outlines of what we're going to be in the state of Connecticut, to no longer tolerate these chokeholds, to make sure that we empower police officers with cameras, to make sure that we are protecting our citizens, that we no longer look at each other as a problem, but that we police from the sense of service. And those are echoes that have been led here by our governor, and he can be rest assured that from our committee, from my person, and I hope from the rest of the legislature, we lock arms with him and make sure that every citizen in the state of Connecticut feels reassured, feels empowered, understands that they're important, that their lives are important. And I truly, truly, truly appreciate what we're all doing here today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Governor. You deserve a strong round of applause for everything that you're doing for our state. God bless you.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate that. We're going to work on this together, Dennis. And finally, Brandon McGee, head of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, my good friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. And thank everyone who's here. I think a lot has already been said with respect to today's announcement. I do applaud the governor, his staff, along with Commissioner Ravella and his team, as well as our co-chairs of public safety, on such in a very important day, but a day that I would say we have a lot of work and ground that we need to cover. I think the governor has already said it, so I'm not saying anything new. and that is this is just the foundation that's being laid today for a much larger conversation when we return for special session. But I really just want to underscore a couple things before I step away from the mic. The governor talked a little bit about banning of chokeholds. I think removing any police-related tactic that involves placing an instrument or applying physical pressure where access to breathing is cut off definitely needs to be banned. When you begin talking about the use of force definition, there needs to be some changes around definition, meaning modifying the conditions under which a police officer can legally use deadly force from times when it is reasonable to when it is necessary. This would definitely require de-escalation and improved crisis intervention methods. There are several other areas that I will hold off on. I know that the governor has already mentioned a lot of what I will share with you, but I look forward to working alongside the administration, the chairs of the respected committees, that's judiciary as well as public safety, to come up with some legislation that really considers the community voices that we hear at the rallies and the protests, and not just a policy that we're passing just because we needed to pass something. So I'm delighted to stand with this governor, his administration, again, on behalf of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. The work really starts, y'all, today. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done as we prepare for special session. So again, Governor, thank you. Thank you.
Any questions for Brander?
Now, Governor, can you explain a little bit more about the use of force portal and whether I know right now if an officer draws his taser and uses his taser, there's no report. That's required to the state of Connecticut. So what are you asking?
I'm asking them for there to be a report. I want that listed in real time on this portal. I want to know who, whatever the weapon might have been, who that was used on, whatever the use of force was, the type of person that was used on, so we have some credibility and some transparency in terms of how we're operating.
And this would only apply to the Connecticut State Police?
I'm going to work with the legislature in terms of what we can do with the municipal police as well.
Senator Anwar sent out a letter today asking you to declare racism as a public health emergency. Have you received that letter? Do you have any response to him already?
I think I've said a number of times that there are two highly infectious germs that are infecting the body. One is COVID and the other is racism in this state. I could not have been clearer on that, and we're going to eradicate both as best we can.
For Representatives Bradley and Berengia, is the list of reforms that Governor Lamont has imposed for the state police, is that a good starting point for potential legislation, or would you like to do more, or would you want to do less?
Just before we answer that, if it's okay, I know on behalf of our caucus, we've been working with Health Equity Solutions under the leadership of Dr. Takesha Everett, among other stakeholders, literally declaring health as a new standard when you begin talking about racism. So that's not anything new, and I'm glad Senator Anwar sent that open letter. But there's a groundswell of community advocates that have been meeting with the governor with respect to that as well.
Governor, CCSU used to put together. Oh, I'm sorry.
Other question about follow-up?
Yes, I think today's announcement signifies a great first step in a process that we'll see play out, particularly in the short session. I think it's important that we take these steps. What happens after that? I think we can. It's a work in progress. It's something that we need to continue to work, particularly in the steps that have been outlined here today.
Do you think it's realistic to impose this level of reform through legislation? Yeah.
Through legislation, yes. The challenge will obviously be the short session, but on some of these major announcements, I think we'll find an agreement.
So you guys are looking to codify all of what's in the executive order Governor Lamont said today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Governor,
Can I just echo on the statements? The only thing that's needed for this stuff to happen is leadership. And with the governor leading the charge like this, I would be remiss if my colleagues in the legislature won't follow the trail that he's blazing for us. So I do believe that this is possible, and again, I commend them for having that ability to lead us to the path of righteousness in this issue.
Governor, have you taken advice from the loyal opposition on this order, and what sort of input have you received from them, and what are they going to tell us when we call this afternoon about their input in this?
Their input into this particular item as regards to state police, I work with the state police on trying to come up with something affirmative, fast, and now. But look, I know there's a lot of debate. Do you want this to be bipartisan or not? You bet I do. I'd like to reach out. I want to make sure the Republicans are at the table. I want to make sure, look, I think Republicans were as outraged as Democrats when they saw what happened with George Floyd, and I hope we can now turn that into action together.
To clarify, Representative Berengiu, that this would be in a special session? This would be codified in a special session, the upcoming special session?
That's what we'd like to do, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just want to clarify. I know a lot of this is related to state police. Is there any conversation right now with the municipalities to sort of extend some of these?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. I can't do that myself through my executive power, but working with our friends in the legislature, we want this throughout our entire police force. Joe, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. That's a really good question, because I think it's key that we do not create two types of policing here in Connecticut, state police and municipal. So the governor is doing what he can do now through the executive order, but as we move forward, one of my goals is to make sure that we have one police department with one set of laws and one set of rules.
I would just add a little color, figuratively and literally. You guys can laugh. You can laugh on that one. For me, as the chair, and thank you for asking that question, as the chair of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, that's the first sort of challenge we thought of. You have the state police, fine. It's really not an issue with them, but it's good that we're calling out what we need to call out to hold them accountable as well. But we need to get down to the municipal level, where a lot of these killings and lynching, if you would, are actually occurring with Black and brown men and women. So I think as we begin to work on proposals, I am excited that this governor and administration is open to having that conversation to figure out how collectively we can come up with some legislation that has teeth, and not to just pass something just to pass it, and also account for all of the many voices that are rallying today, tomorrow, and the remaining weeks until they see some real change happening. So again, thanks for asking that question.
Do you have hope? Because we saw you 2 weeks ago at the police department with your daughter at a protest, and you said, "I want for her." Do you have hope the future is going to be? But what are you feeling right now?
That's a loaded question because some days it depends. I'm still very frustrated, angry, hopeful that I am in a position that I can actually influence policy and use my platform to carry the other voiceless that are fighting. Every day is a new day, and that's how I'll call it. But I'll continue to fight. And I'm also encouraged that, again, we have a governor who's saying, look, we got to work together on this issue. And if you don't want to work together, we still need to get something passed. So thanks for asking that question. And my daughter is still wondering, how do we get justice? She said that yesterday. She turned 3. So thanks again.
On the diversity front, how do we appeal to minorities when wanting to recruit them to say, hey, come be part of the police force?
I'll start with that. I can use your help, guys. I can tell you, I mentioned what we're doing, first of all, in terms of more female troopers. I go beyond that, though. We are working with the ministers. We're working with the community activists. We're working with maybe some folks who have a little bit of skepticism about joining the police force, to tell you the truth, and trying to get them in, trying to explain better what we do, why we do it, and why this could be an amazing career for you. You know, we're down about 25% in terms of our state police over the last decade or so. So down quite a bit. I know there's some question about how much police you need, but I think we need more Black and brown and female state troopers. We're going to get it done.
I would add, when we begin talking about the police review boards, making sure independent police review boards, ensuring that community and other stakeholders have an opportunity to be a part of the overall process of managing and also holding our police departments accountable, so that they have a direct insight on, the inner workings of this system that we just don't trust, right? So it's cute that we have recruitment efforts. I think it's awesome. You have PAL, Police Academy Leagues. You have police officers literally walking the beat. My cousin is a police officer. I'm not going to tell you which city, but he's a police officer. Oh, and by the way, happens to be married to a white woman. So just imagine the struggles that he has to encounter. But we love her and we love his family. But I know that there, again, are some good actors and some bad actors. But if we begin to support those who are doing the job well, in addition to some policy changes, you'll have some more trust. But if we don't contend with the historical context as to where we are and how to move forward, then you're always going to perpetuate a lack of trust by Black and brown people. But I think we're at a place where we have an opportunity to change that.
We need to defund police departments?
Pardon?
We've seen Hartford move forward with calling for $1 million to cut out the police budget. Is that a good thing moving forward with defunding them, or does it need more money to increase recruiting?
Let me just clarify, because I believe defunding sometimes could take you down a rabbit hole that says completely just get rid of them. The first person I call when I'm in trouble are my policemen and women. But we do need to reallocate and reshift some of the funding so that it could support some of these very issues and initiatives, rather, that we're speaking of, all right? And when we begin to think about that, I think you'll see a shift in the culture. So I commend the council for putting forth legislation that would not defund, but reallocate and shift some finances around. And I think other city councils and municipalities should take the lead.
Governor, speaking of budgets, I have a question from Paul Hughes. David Lehman told the Appropriations Committee today that Connecticut is not likely to recover economically until the second half of 2021. What's your view on that?
Our budget assumes that we're going to get our economy moving again by the end of this year. And that's why it's so important that I slowly get people back to work safely. That's the end of this year. That's only 6 months away. If we don't, then we have other issues as regards our budget. We're better shaped than all of our peers, but then we'll all have budget issues as well. When do we get back to 100% and then 110%? I think David's probably right. It's going to take a little longer than that. But we got to get that economy going a lot sooner than that.
Do we know yet when we're going to have an announcement? I know there's been announcements on universities about what their plans are for the fall. When is the State Department of Education going to come out with guidance for municipalities regarding what's going to happen in the fall with school?
Yeah, we're going to get that guidance out in about a week. I mean, we're focused on this really strong. We are going to have a school year in September. We're going to have classes in September. We're going to have colleges going, provided our metrics continue heading in the right direction. We're working right now with superintendents and teachers, making sure we put in place some clear direction on how we're going to get that done.
Governor, CCSU used to put together a study every year.
Use of force with
tasers.
Tasers.
Police officers use of tasers. I understand that was last done in 2017 based on 2016 figures, but it's been discontinued since then because of funding. Has your administration looked at funding that so it can start again and start reproducing those reports?
My understanding is this portal is going to be able to monitor that on a real-time basis. So if that's what it requires, that's what we're doing.
Governor, as I understand it, DPH doesn't currently have guidance that people quarantine after traveling out of state. As COVID cases spike in other places, including like Florida, where Connecticut residents are always going back and forth with, is there any thought to some sort of something to prevent people from bringing the virus back from other places?
We got a lot of guys coming back from Florida right now. I was sort of amused to hear the governor of Florida say anybody from Connecticut or New York goes to Florida, I want them to quarantine for 2 weeks, I think he said. By the way, his infection rate, his positivity rate is probably 3 times what it is in Connecticut. So, physician, heal thyself. So that said, look, if you come back from Florida and you're showing any symptoms at all, stay home, self-quarantine, absolutely.
Governor, we're reopening the stage for the second phase on Wednesday. And so I'm wondering when, getting a lot of email questions about the DMV and when DMV services that can't be done online currently will reopen?
Yeah, I think we're going to open a lot as part of phase 2, but let me get back to you on the specifics. I'm sorry, I don't know the details. As you know, we extended everything out 90, 120 days, so there was no need for you to go in to re-register or get your license renewed, but we've got to add more clarity on that.
Governor, in addition to agreeing in principle with Senator Anwar, is that something that you would actually consider that declaration?
I got to look at that. I don't quite know what it means, to tell you the truth.
On the topic of COVID and masks, we had a couple of questions from viewers asking about medical exemptions, that there have been customers saying they are medically exempt from wearing a mask. Is there anything in place to address that right now? And can an owner legally
I think some people
ask them
have
to go outside?
respiratory issues where their doctor has said don't wear a mask. I haven't been really strict on enforcing that. I'm taking people at their word. I don't think people are abusing that. You know me, when it comes to vaccinations, I'd like to tighten up those exemptions because vaccinations don't work unless people get vaccinated. Hey, everybody, I think we should call it here. I just want you to know that Representative Stastrom and Senator Winfield are supportive of everything we're trying to do, head of the Judiciary Committee, just like public safety behind us. We'll be working together starting very soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.